Are you ready to talk?
About what, sir?
About West Indies cricket.
Can't talk enough about it.
You never get tired.
Never get tired. No, so many things to talk about. How could one get tired?
So you have to chat.
Yes, and we are on must chat about it.
Anytime?
Every time.
We are about to engage someone normally quiet, renowned for its exploits on the pitch, but insisting on remaining away from the podium, refusing many interviews during his career.
And who might that be?
The legendary 6'8" Antiguan, West Indies right arm fast bowling ace, one of the very best in the world. 57-year-old Sir Curtly Lindwall Ambrose, one of Wisden Cricketers of the Year in 1992 and inducted in the International Cricket Hall of Fame.
He has spoken?
Yes, insisting now it's time to talk.
Hello, I'm Stratton Palmer.
And I'm Curtis Myrie, and welcome to Real Chat. Pitch that's laid for all that's to be probed to make you want to chat.
Now, here is the man, Sir Curtly Ambrose. 98 test matches, 405 runs at an average of 20.99, 4-wicket haul 21 times, 5-wicket haul 22 times. 1990, 8 for 5, unbelievable, against England at Bridgetown. And then 6 for 14 against South Africa at the same venue. And 1993, 7 for 25 against Australia in Perth. Astounding.
Amazing feats. Man with a book with a title that speaks volumes. Time to talk.
Sir Curtly Ambrose. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes. What stirred you? What made you want to write? And why this particular title? Is it just because you're normally quiet? Or does it signal something else about really wanting to talk about developments taking place? Or a combination of all?
Well, first of all, I mean, the guy who wrote the book, Richard Sindenham,
Yes.
an Englishman,
Right.
he approached me a few years before that, asking me to write the book.
Mhm.
And of course, I politely declined because I never really wanted to write no book. I just figured I came into cricket from nowhere, basically, a virtual unknown. And I figured at the end of my career, I just want to live basically the same way. The only thing I want people to know about me is what I did on the cricket field. And so I turned him down politely. And then a few years after that, I saw him again somewhere. And we had a talk, and he said, listen, man, you need to do a book. You know, I mean, lots of your fans don't really know there's a real Curtly Ambrose. They only know you as a cricketer, but nothing else. And I said to him, that's what I want. That's okay. You know? And then he said, no, man. And then I thought about it and said, you know what? You have a big point. Because, I mean, I've had many followers for many years supporting me. And I think I owe them at least to know the real Curtly Ambrose. So I thought about it and said, yes, I will do the book basically for all my fans and followers so at least they know a little bit more about me than just cricket. Hence the book. And in terms of the title, Time to Talk, that was Richard's idea.
Mhm.
He said, you know what? All these years you've been playing cricket, you know, you hardly do interviews, you refuse to do interviews, nobody knows anything about you. So maybe that's a good title for the book, Time to Talk. Immediately, I gravitated towards it. I said, yeah, that's a nice topic, you know, a nice title.
Yes.
So he was the one who came up with it, hence the name of the book.
Who is, because it begs the question, who is the real Curtly Ambrose?
Well, it's very simple. Curtly Ambrose is a very quiet, laid-back kind of person. Doesn't really like the limelight too much. I prefer to stay in the background and let everyone else go to the front. You know, I enjoy myself. I like to have fun. You know, I have a good sense of humor and that stuff. People don't know that because I'm always so serious and aggressive once I'm playing cricket. But that's my nature. Anytime I'm competing, my natural aggression just comes out. But that is only my job and my work. But Curtly Ambrose himself now is a very quiet, laid-back kind of person who just don't like the limelight too much.
But Curtly,
very easy going.
But Curtly, you are a man of emotion, as in expression, as you are a musician of note. So purely, you're a man who faces the public and really put what you have inside out.
Well, yes. You see, the thing is with me, even though I said I'm very reserved and quiet and like to stay in the background and all that stuff, that's me personally. But if I'm doing something, playing cricket or music, you know, I always want to be the best I can be. Because, you see, I'm a very proud man. My pride plays a huge part. I don't want to go there and be no second fiddle or some kind of weak link with whatever I'm doing. I want to be the best I can be so I can put up a good performance, whether it's cricket or music or sports in general. So once I'm doing that, I give it 100% every time. And after that, I go back to my little quiet corner and just relax. So what I see in the field and playing music is my pride. I want to be the best at what I do.
So your pride plays a great part.
A huge part. Huge.
Huge part. Is pride playing a huge part as you are observing now in West Indies cricket?
Looking on from the outside, I don't see the same kind of passion, the same kind of fire, and that will to win like we had in our time. I haven't seen that. I'm not saying the guys don't want to win. Of course, I want to win, but I'm not going to say about the pride, because you must have pride in your performances. If you don't have pride in what they're doing and the performances, then something is wrong with them. So I wouldn't want to talk about pride. They must have pride. But I'm not saying the fire, the passion, the determination, and the will to be successful. I'm not saying that.
One thought, Sir Curtly, that the timing of the book really would have some expression of what is happening in West Indies cricket, and you're so fed up that you're saying it's time that I talk. Is there anything you have to say about the cricket, and harping back to a time when you were with the successful unit, mobilizing the players to a World Cup victory, and then the powers that be thought it better not to have you around when you are so well needed in many people's opinion?
Well, yes, being dismissed right after the T20 World Cup triumph was very, very disappointing. You know, because, I mean, the whole Caribbean was on a high, and we were hoping, well, I was hoping to build on that good fortune going forward. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and like I said before, you know, it was down to Phil Simmons, the head coach, because from what I understand is that the head coach picked his crew. It's not cricket West Indies. The head coach is responsible for picking his crew, right? And what disappointed me more, apart from being dismissed right after a World Cup triumph, when the whole Caribbean was on a high, looking for the future, is that I'm a man who like to improve. And whatever I'm doing, and I'm working along with someone, I like to ask questions like, how am I doing? Where can I improve? I like to get knowledge and feedback so I can improve my craft. And every time I go to Phil Simmons, the head coach, and I ask him about, you know, how am I doing? You know, am I doing a good job? Where can I improve? That kind of thing. He always said to me that I'm doing a fantastic job. And exactly what he wanted me to do, I am doing. I bring that kind of passion to the team, the commitment, and the will to win. Everything you want me to do, I'm doing it. So every time I talk to him, I go away feeling real good within myself. And then at the end of the World Cup now, came to me and said, listen, man, well, he said in an interview some way that I am not technical enough, so he's going to go for what he has picked instead of me.
Well, I was just, Stratton, hold on there,
I'm
Curtly.
chomping at the bit.
Oh, yeah, you hold on there, because I was about to say something, I heard, and I am going to sit on myself. I have to. I heard that, and let me say this politely as I can. I heard that accreditation was the chief consideration. And I know that the dint of one's performance is not lettering.
It's performance.
It is indeed the quality of your performance. Yes. In fact, history is replete with persons who have no degrees being called in by leading universities because they are experts in their field. They're called in by leading universities to have workshops, to have seminars, to have lectures at these institutions. This argument, because again, the bride lays on, so I was waiting until you said it. This argument about you perhaps being passed over because of the desired accreditation, how does that sit with you?
And I just want to add something, Sir Curtly.
Yes.
If Bob Marley was alive, he would say, what Curtly knows is what they are teaching. So accreditation becomes secondary.
This is it. So
speak to that for me.
You see, like I said, now, if head coach Phil Simmons, they say to me, like I said, I go to him regularly about my performance, how am I doing, so I can learn if I'm doing something that, and if he keep telling me I'm doing one fantastic job and everything he has to do, I'm doing, about the discipline, the passion and all that stuff to the team and everything, and yet still, you're telling me soon after that I'm not technical enough. Now that to me is extremely disappointing. If you said to me from early, listen, Ambi, I don't think you're doing a good job, or whatever, I could respect that and understand it. You check what I'm saying? But don't be telling me I'm doing a fantastic job, letting me believe everything is everything. And then after a World Cup triumph, where everybody's happy, looking for the future, you drop me to say I'm not technical. That to me is unacceptable. You understand?
Yes.
Now, for me personally, I have nothing against Phil Simmons. I saw him after a couple of times. We talk, we say, hey, what's up? And I still tell him, if you ever need me for any kind of assistance, just call me. Because it's not about Phil Simmons or Curtly Ambrose.
Right.
It's about West Indies cricket. Right? So I have not much towards him. I was disappointed, yes, and I told him that when he spoke. But I'm just saying that, for me, I've been through coaching courses. I'm now a level 3 coaching course. The reason being, nowadays, and you're applying for a job, one of the first questions they ask, they want to see a certificate to see if you've been through coaching courses. I didn't do the coaching courses because I know nothing about cricket. I believe I know nothing at all about cricket.
Yes.
But because of the way things are in the world today, they want to see some kind of certificate showing that you've done. So I went and did all that. And I'm a level 3 coach. So I'm just saying now, with Simmons, to me that was totally disappointing, and I couldn't understand it. So it was really bad, and I told him so in no certain terms. But again, I have no animosity towards him. We will talk when I see him, and I let him know. Anything you want my assistance, just call me. Yeah. This is bigger than Ambrose and Simmons.
I recently posted on Andrew Mason's chat, Sir Curtly, that the 2 young promising fast bowlers, Chemar and your own Antiguan, Mr. Joseph, that they should send them to Antigua for yourself and others who are there to have a look at them and work with them for 3 week spell, and that they should find the funding to send them to you, because the wit and the wiles of pace bowling is not something that you teach, it's something that you impart. You could look at them and speak to them about your own experiences, which nobody will find in any book.
And let me add quickly to what the point Stratton raised. This also is rolled into mentorship.
Critically.
Yes,
Yeah.
critically rolled into mentorship. So the question I'm asking, are we doing enough of that? Are we? What is it this crop of players is learning about the legends? How is the board engaging the likes of Ambrose, even if not coach, as motivator, as some ambassador for making the new set of players understand the culture of West Indies cricket?
Well, it's important with that point that you just made, because from the very first day I retired from cricket, and that's 20 years ago, believe it or not, 20 years,
20 years.
2000, my last tour to England, I made it clear to Cricket West Indies and cricket in general, whether it's in the region or internationally, I made it very clear that cricket was my life, and I would love to give back first and foremost to West Indies cricket, but cricket in general, wherever. All what I've learned, all my experience I've gained, I want to impart my knowledge to cricketers globally if the opportunity arises. So there's no secret. I want to be a part of cricket, especially West Indies cricket, right? So I'm still here. I mean, I must say, you know, every once in a while in bits and pieces, Cricket West Indies may call me to do a little spell with some fast bowls and stuff in between here and there. You know, since I left, well, I shouldn't say since I left the senior team, since I was ousted. You know, but since 2016, every now and then they will call me in to work with a few guys here and there, you know, that kind of thing. But nothing on a long-term basis. I'm still here waiting.
Well, my parting word, Sir Curtly,
Yes.
is that you have now satisfied all the requirements. You did it on the field, you did it with the accreditation. There is no more excuses to be given.
Well, let's see what happens. And like I say, you know, I still have West Indies cricket at heart. West Indies cricket made me into a household name, and I would never degrade it or disgrace it. And anything I can do to make West Indies cricket better, I am ready, willing, and able to do that, because cricket is bigger than all of us, and it belongs to all of us as well.
How is the batting?
Well, I've got to mention that, you know, a lot of people figure Curtly Ambrose was only a bowler, but I could handle myself with the bat.
Yeah.
Do you know? And you can look it up when you finish. Do you know that of all the West Indian fast bowlers, not all rounders, of all the great West Indies fast bowlers of the past, do you know I am second in terms of runs scored?
Well, I just prepared the wicket for you, Sir Curtly.
No, man, I could handle myself.
I'll say this. We have to get you back. Because in that same chat room just today, you posted something about the pitch, reminding us that the pitch, the quality of the pitches, has a lot to do with the outcome of games. And we don't take pitches seriously in the West Indies, apparently. Because you can't just wet it up and roll it days before. But Curtly,
thank you ever so much.
Thank you so much. We're going to call on you again because there is a lot more to talk.
No problem at all, man. Anytime, you know, and just all the best with the show, and just keep the fire burning.
Yeah. We appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks
you
a lot.
so much, Curtly.
Yeah,
Thank
man,
you.
no problem.
All
Take
right.
care. Good, man.
Good.
All right.
More than a good over being bowled.
Certainly. And,
We'll be right back. More to talk.
Yeah.
Back again at the crease. And what a whole
Sorry?
pile of things we start talking about each other.
Lively opening spell.
Lively opening spell.
Yes.
We have
Yes,
here
very
with
much
us
so.
Australian Ashley Sidney, noted author of the
Ashley
book.
Gray, in fact.
Huh?
Ashley Gray, in fact, yes, from Sydney, correct.
Right, right. Noted author
Yeah.
of the book Unforgiven, I'm sorry. Revealing story
That's
of the
all good.
West Indies rebel tour of South Africa. He's a man who knows of the West Indies game. He's a man who has over years mapped our development, right? And it's a fine book.
Yes.
Ashley, welcome to the
you.
program.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be on it. Thank you, Curtis and Stratton.
Yes.
It's yeah.
What are
it's a
your
real
thoughts
honour. Thank you.
about about Curtly Ambrose's book, Time to Talk?
Well, I think he's got a lot to say that is often ignored by the authorities, and I'm not sure why, because he has insights into the game that few others have had. And certainly in Australia, he is respected like few other bowlers. And I think if you took a poll of the average man in the street in Australia, he would tell you that of those ferocious West Indian bowlers, Curtly was probably the one that we feared the most. So, yeah, I think Curtly deserves to have his words listened to very carefully, and also I think he needs to be a part of the setup, as do a lot of the former players who've been neglected over the years. It seems to be just an ongoing thing where you have the greats of the previous eras are not are being almost willfully ignored by the West Indies Cricket Board and so on. So like I said, Curtly is a great man and very very revered in Australia.
As you look around the cricketing landscape, you just mentioned about this treatment of West Indian past players, people who have just left the game.
Yeah.
Is it the same around when the other teams, England, Australia, Pakistan, India, South Africa?
It's not the same in Australia. I mean, it's probably easier as well here because we are a singular country where the West Indies is obviously a conglomeration of many different island countries. So Justin Langer, who's running the show, and of course you had Darren Lehman before him, and they're always bringing in the players that they played with from the great eras to help out. So there's what these past players bring is they also bring the idea of respect for the cap that they're playing, that they're wearing. So you get a better sense of what the history of the game is and how important it is to be wearing this cap, the baggy green in Australia's case. And I think that's been one of the keys to our success is that we do draw on the talents of our past players, of our past greats. Greg Chappell is still very actively involved. Excuse me. Actually, the only guy that I could say in the Australian circumstance that probably hasn't been utilised as much as it could have been is probably Dennis Billy. And I know that he, at different times, has been forced to go overseas to coach. I'm not really sure why that has never really eventuated here, but he's only ever really given private sessions, never really had much of an official capacity. But other than that, I think it's important that you draw on the
What I hear you mention is the whole factor of pride, right? You mentioned the bag of the hats of the Australian. It is something that is revered, and it helps to pull and push you to greater performances. You're saying that the West Indies don't seem to have that kind of pride, especially the present generation, as the generation which came to Australia in 1960 with the tie test and got so much acclaim, and then you look at Lloyd and his 15-year reign in West Indies team. Not the same, no, as it was then.
Definitely the case. But I think there are also social and political considerations to take into account. What you had back in the 50s and 60s was Test cricket was sort of neatly paralleling what was going on in the political sphere in the British West Indies. So it became very important that the West Indies had, for example, a black captain, because that meant that the West Indies could take control of their own affairs. And this would be mirrored in the political sphere as well, where independence came about. And then, of course, later on in the 70s and 80s, you had these really independent nations coming together as the West Indies, who wanted to show to the outside world that they were legitimate and thriving countries who deserved their place in the world. So Steve Richards and Clive Lloyd took on that idea and ran with it, and obviously it also dovetailed with the idea of sort of black power and a sense of racial pride as well. So these factors were at play, and I think they really gave a sense of purpose that perhaps doesn't exist today. And I think once that great West Indies side sort of fell apart in the late 90s, there wasn't the same imperative to assert West Indies pride in the cap in the same way it was previously. And I think there was a recognition across the West Indies that, well, we've shown Britain, we've shown England that we were the best at this game, but what do we do now? And there was, I think, in the background at least, there's a realization that America is perhaps our closest influence, and we really have to be pivoting that way. And I think, especially when I've been in the Caribbean, that there's been a sense more now that America is a major influence both culturally and certainly sports-wise, it's becoming that way. So I think these things are all going on in the background as well, which are perhaps diminishing the attractiveness of playing Test cricket. And obviously you've got the major competitor, which is probably T20, which is taking guys away from the maroon cap. So yeah, I think a lot of different factors are all coming together.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, what do you guys think?
Mark, well, I'll say this. Mark Nita pointed us in your direction, right? And I'd like to thank him for it. You said, and final question. You have mentioned all the things that you have seen, all the things that you have noted.
I think it's a brilliant analysis.
Your fine analysis about pride and purpose and worth and esteem, right?
Yes.
In your book, Unforgiven, about the West Indies Rebel Tour to South Africa, Mark said you were here for quite some time in Jamaica, right?
Yes, correct.
With that critical eye too about our customs, right? And how we viewed things, right?
Yes, yep.
What's a lasting imprint?
Yes. Look, I went to Kensington's home ground in East Kingston, and
right.
yeah, I really enjoyed the beauty of that ground. It was almost like a postcard scene, because you've got the mountain range in the background, and it has a kind of rural feel to it. And I think the Jamaican youth team was training at that point, and I just thought that was a very beautiful little postcard, and if I could have taken a photograph and sent it, I would have. But I have here a book that's almost like a brick, and it's called Jamaica at the Wicket, and it's by Arnold Bertram, and it goes back to the very origins of cricket in Jamaica, and you can see that it has been a major force within Jamaican life, both socially, politically, and also, obviously, in terms of sport. But what I noticed when I was there was that the World Cup was coming up, World Cup soccer, and what I could tell was that people were a lot more interested in the affairs of the Brazilian World Cup soccer side than they were in the West Indies cricket side. So, as much as I like soccer, it was with a little bit of sadness that I felt that, but that I sensed that was the case. But at the same time, there were also so many signs of how cricket had helped transform Jamaica, and everywhere I went, everyone had an opinion on the game and what could be done. I remember going into a souvenir shop, and this little old lady there was telling me what she thought was done for the West Indies side, and I thought, well, if she's got her finger on the pulse, that's a good sign.
I tell you, Ashley, sorry to disturb your dissertation, but we have gone over time, and certainly we will have you in mind for the future. Beautiful stuff that you presented to us, and we thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much for having me on. It was an honor. Thank you.
Good. Right there.
Okay, we are back with you on Real Chat, and we are deeply honored to have the man himself, Clavis Josephs. He's a former vice president of West Indies Cricket Board.
And may I remind you, a man who speaks his mind.
Yes, certainly so, and a man who has graced us with his presence in Jamaica with a lot of good times, and we really treasure those days. Clavis, welcome.
Hi, how are you, sir?
Good, very good. Clavis, you must be a broke.
One mind, sir. Can't speak yours.
You must be a broken man when you see where West Indies cricket has gone. You remember coming to Jamaica. You remember the experiences that the world had in Antigua, which almost overtook Barbados as the mecca of West Indies cricket with what went on there. Are you saddened by what has happened to West Indies cricket?
Actually, we have lost our way. We lost our way a long time ago. We were more interested in form than substance, and you're paying the price for that. That is, you have no depth, and there is no the basis, the rhythm of West Indies cricket went out the window a long time ago.
But tell me, Clavis.
We don't know why we're playing. We just exist.
Richie Richardson, and I keep harping on this, a month or two ago, kept, you know him, so very soberly, he he has remarked that we need to return to the culture of West Indies cricket. How do we do that? Is that a whim? Is that a whim?
Or away?
We have to understand where we come from in the first instance. Unless we understand where we come from, we're not going any place. And as I said, we're more interested in form and gesturing than we're interested in results and performance. In other words, we have a lot of certificated people. I'm not certain that they're certified to do anything. And that's the problem. In other words, certificates have rule knowledge. And we all know that in any education system, certification is only one part of the manifestation.
Of course it is.
It cannot be all and end all.
And I'll tell you
some
this.
fundamental problems at the top. I don't know if the West Indies Cricket Board know where they want to go.
Even the present cricket board?
They don't know where they want to go. I don't think they understand the roots of West Indies cricket either. As a matter of fact, I don't think they understand the roots of West Indian behavior. So we don't play cricket with any rhythm. We don't have any reason to play. We get paid, full stop. And so the people who run the cricket don't run it out of a love of the game or don't run it out of a cause, a developmental cause. They run it for the money that they can make out of it. And that's an ethic that has been set since.
Are you saying, Clavis, that the administrators are making money out of the game?
Well, I used to be on the West Indies Cricket Board for a number of years. And we did it out of the love of that. No fellas getting paid to be members of the board. I never know about that yet. So maybe all along it, the money is what has taken over.
Both with players and administration.
So once you start dealing who's making money out of what, you're not getting any results. Because there's no passion. And Caribbean behavior. It's rooted in passion, and we have no passion. So whether we lose or win, we die or we live is totally irrelevant. We got paid.
A point was made the other day about the players now and their approach. And yes, the whole issue of livelihood is sacrosanct. Okay, well, fine. But because of the leagues of the world and all that is waved like a dangling carrot, the point was made that we take that seriously. And whenever it is we need to represent the West Indies, it's really like a vacation away from the job. How do you see that?
It goes back to my point that I made a while ago, that we don't know why we are doing what we are doing.
Exactly.
And once you don't have any reason for existing, anything goes. Now, they talk about money and leagues, etc. You cannot be an Indian cricketer and just get up and play for who you want to play for. You cannot be an English cricketer and play for who you want to play for, when you choose to, where you choose to, how you choose to. You cannot be an Australian cricketer and do the same thing, because in those cricket boards there's discipline and there's reason for existence. We don't have any. And don't blame the players. Players will conform. Players like children, they will conform to whatever ethic is set up in the home.
Yeah. Is it about the cricketers though? Because if you look at the public, they will chastise you if you ever mention that these players are mercenaries. Yeah?
Stop a while. It is your house. You decide how you run it. The minute your children, the tail start to run the head, lock down the house and go about your business.
but I was saying, Travis, that they will tell you that the players have to eat a food, as we say in Jamaica.
So everybody becomes
every
flat.
parent, hold on. Every parent have to put food on the table.
Table too.
So you're going to child because of that.
Thank you, Clavis. Thank you.
You're going to sell your girl child because of that. What damn nonsense is that?
Well, that's where we are.
That's exactly where we are, Stratton. And Stratton is right, because it's actually it's a view. It's a nonsensical view, but it's a view. Man have to eat a
That's
food.
an excuse for not making a decision. That's an excuse for not setting up a system.
So it comes back to the board.
That's an excuse for not managing the activity to which you are charged.
Well, you have put the cats among the pigeon. Really, a lot of discussions about
And
the
so
point you have
everybody
made.
needs to lock down because them not have no reason for existing.
Should
Make money out of the deal.
Let me make this point that very few persons really want to raise. In having a serious look at how we are floundering, should we be moving away from test matches for a while to see how we may regroup and regain ground?
No. We're not going anywhere. We're not moving away from nothing towards nothing. We don't have any reason for existing. What your program name? Real Chat?
Real Chat.
Chat your chat.
Well, it's Real Chat, but for instance, you can't blame the players because the players, like all children, will conform to whatever system is established. So Andrew Russell can know that he can choose to do this and choose to do that and choose to do the rest. And damn the consequences.
Even at the expense of not going to the doctors for his treatment.
There is no consequences to anything because from board right down everybody, if you don't have any ethic established, if you don't have any principle established, then experience is the only thing that rules the day. And we are running an international game on the basis of expediency, not on principle.
Well, Sir Clavis, your voice is heard, and as usual, you have spoken it as you always do. You're not afraid to put your points out there. It's food for thought, and many people will be ruminating on what you just said to us. We'd like to thank you very much for joining us on the program today.
And I'll tell you this. It's not just being Clavis. It's how we really become conscious of our feelings. And we really need to be taking seriously what folks like Clavis are saying, because we really need to have a proper look in the mirror. Thanks, Clavis. And
okay, no problem, man, anytime.
All right, my brother. Good.
Do not consult me about things that you know are going to be controversial. What must happen is that they must first understand Caribbean people and Caribbean behavior before you can run a Caribbean institution.
Righto.
All righto.
And I'm certain that the people who run in West Indies cricket have one clue about what a Caribbean institution should or should not look like.
All right,
and until you solve that issue, you have nowhere to go. Take your blow and go about your business. You get paid.
Thanks again.
All right, Clavis.
Right.
We will be back. It has been... Yes, it has been lively.
Rollicking.
And rollicking. All right. Thank you, Clavis. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back. We have with us Mark Nita, cricketer of repute. And oh, how we would like to be living in this time of mediocrity, because he was such an excellent player from what, the age of 13, 14, played in our senior cup competition.
And on the subject that we have been having all evening, he played with pride.
Played with pride, yes, yes. And as matured into a first race administrator, went up for the election, but as you know, elections sometimes don't go the way it ought to. But he still contributes to cricket and is the first amongst equal. Mark, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Strat.
Mark, we have you here because of Curtly Ambrose's book,
Right.
Time to Talk.
Mm-hmm.
And as we told him, it is more about a reflection of where we are than an explanation of how quiet he was.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Yes, as he said, the author told him this is such a good title because you're always refusing interviews. But as we pointed out to him, our interview with him would have been taking us into a parlor for serious discussion on what needs to be fixed now. You are administrator. You are a former captain for Jamaica. What is it that we have to talk about now?
Well, I haven't had the pleasure, first of all, of reading Sir Curtly, Sir Curtly's book.
Mm-hmm.
But, I have so much admiration for him as a cricketer. And I actually remember when he made his debut, if my memory serves me correct, he made his debut against Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
And that was back in the early 80s. And I remember it very well because, and I'm digressing a little bit here, gentlemen,
That's
because
all right.
when I played against him first, it was at the Antigua Recreation Ground.
Yes.
And I remember him coming in, this lanky player, when Beverages gave him the ball, I was already set. I think I got like 30 or 40. And I found at the time him to be rather ordinary, I want to say. And I got 70 odd runs, we won the game. And that was in the one-day international. Well, a couple of days after, we played a 2-day match in Grenada on a different venue. And when I saw Curtly with the ball, I was number 3, I decided not to bat with my helmet. And so I lost the early wicket and I went to bat. And the first ball he bowled to me hit me on the shoulder. And I looked at the heavens and I said, God, what am I doing out here without my helmet? Somebody's going to kill me. And I want to tell you something. It was such a transformation from the week before.
Yes.
He bowled so fast that day. He broke Nigel Kennedy's hand. He hit me Lewis in his helmet. He hit on my shoulder. He hit Marlon Tucker in his rib, and I think fractured a rib. When he passed the Jamaica dressing room, it was like a hospital.
Yes.
I want to tell you.
Because
Because
you dared to take him lightly.
We took him lightly, absolutely, and he really stepped up a gear, and he moved from strength to strength to become arguably the greatest and the greatest fast bowler.
Mark, I'm used to eavesdropping to you guys' conversation because that's where I gather my history from. Was that the game in which when he was running in the slip cord and was saying, kill?
Yes.
But that speaks.
Was quite enough here, I want to tell you something.
Yeah. But
that is etched in my memory. As a matter of fact, I want to tell you.
Yes.
Weeks after, literally weeks after, whenever I looked at my shoulder, the seam of the ball was indented in my left shoulder. I mean, I could see that for weeks after. He bowled so fast that day. And so I have a lot of time for him, a lot of admiration for him. He's a real, apart from being a great fast bowler, he's a gentleman, a scholar of the game, and passionate about cricket. No, to get your question.
But that speaks to a passion, a fire, right?
Say again? I'm sorry.
That is sadly lacking.
Yes, yes, it is. It is. It's the kind of commitment that used to exist back in the day. I want to say no longer exists for the sport. And I don't want to come down too hard on the youngsters because, the era that we are playing in is the era that we're playing in.
Mm-hmm.
But, when we played, it was certainly out of love for country, passion for the game, and all of that. And we would put anything on the line to win games for Jamaica. I mean, we used to say before we go on the field, whether it is Barbados against a four-prong or Antigua against the Leeward Islands against their four-prong, gentlemen, death before the sun of your country. And we'd go out there and literally fight, sometimes within a hand. Now you get the feeling that it's all about the fight. A lot of the players don't even represent their territories.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about playing 20 cricket, earning the fast buck. And because of that, when you look at the players and you look at their development, you can see that they have paid little or no attention to the technique.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it comes to, for argument's sake, Test cricket, the longer version of the game, we can't match up with good fast bowling in conditions that are, not friendly. If the ball is bouncing and steaming and moving around, because we are so deficient in the technical aspect of the game, we can't survive. Now, for me, there are two keys to batting success. And it's two things: temperament and technique.
Mm-hmm.
And if you possess one, good temperament, it means that when the chips are down, you can fight and make some runs. If you possess good technique, again, when the conditions are tough, you can stick it out. But when you have players who lack technique and proper temperament, the race is lost. So we need to address this issue of particular technique area, and I think that is something that we need to start to address from the schoolboy level.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I'm concerned, when you get to the test level, it's too late. You can't teach a man to see a side on the ball. Phil Simmons is not expected to do that.
Fading away.
Hello? We seem to have
Lost Mark
lost
in the traffic.
Yeah.
Let's try one. Are you there, Mark? Well, let's see. Are we going to try to get him back and see if we can conclude?
Yes, come to a quick break. Good. back with Real Chat. Last week, Stratty,
Yes.
in talking to the Reverend Ronnie Thwaites, former Minister of Education,
Yes.
he mentioned that he spoke to Dr. Peter Figueroa, Professor of Public Health, and Dr. Winston Davidson, right? Words to the effect for a template as the best way to have students return to classes, right? It's possible, it's doable. That was his contention. So, folks, we decided to make a call on Dr. Figueroa and Dr. Davidson. Professor, how are you? Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, right.
Yes, Professor, a man of much acclaim, included the United Nations Peace Medal
Yes.
for his work to public affairs, to Caribbean and elsewhere, the Americas, etc. Looking at this critical situation, Professor, is there a smooth passage to getting back to normalcy or near normalcy? What is the best route to get our children back in the classroom?
What's the blueprint?
Okay, well, if we remain calm, I think we can do it smoothly, but we do have to plan it carefully. With respect to COVID, it appears that transmission of COVID is much less likely among younger children as against teenagers. So as long as we're not having widespread community spread of COVID, I think it's possible to arrange for the younger children to go back to school.
We're talking about the primary level students in particular.
Yes.
Right.
So, of course, you have to plan for them to maintain some physical distancing at school, and they should be wearing masks and able to wash their hands or sanitize. And of course, you have to arrange breaks for the children so they can go outside and play and get a break from the classroom and a break from wearing the mask. So you just have to organize it carefully. It may mean that at some primary schools you can't have all the children at the same time, but that you schedule perhaps half of the children on one day and the other half on another day. And of course, all the parents, the teachers, everybody has to get together and make themselves comfortable. A big challenge, of course, being getting the children to school and back safely.
That is one side of the equation, Doc. If that doesn't happen, what is the effect on the children and their attitude as they grow in this situation? Does it take away from personality or character development?
Well, it really does set back the children tremendously. And for those children who come from middle-class homes where they can get more attention, they may have internet, they may have laptops, computers, they may have everything that they need, then they can still continue to benefit from education at a distance.
Okay.
But the less well-off children, the poorer children, where they have much less resources, and in many areas, especially in the rural areas, the internet is not good, and the children may not have access to internet. It means that they are losing out tremendously. And we have already gone about, what is it now, 9 months?
9 months, thereabouts.
You know, so an entire year, academic year, and we're going to have to face the fact that we're going to have challenges for another year. All of next year, 2021, we're going to have challenges because we're not going to have the vaccine in any significant amounts before the end of next year. So We can't have children being set back for two
2 years.
academic years. And then that puts them in a really advantageous position.
What do we do to avoid leaving them behind? Because, all right, outside of just getting internet, having access to the internet, right? Which will take time. Those children, as you said, living in densely populated areas, as in the inner city, having the challenges, their welfare and well-being. How do we go about addressing those communities, those families, so as not to leave them behind? Do we need to make more calls on community centers, police stations, so as the children can, so as to go to a central point to continue learning? Do we need to start having makeshift centers, that sort of thing?
Well, I think all your proposals, all your suggestions have to be considered seriously. I would start, especially in the inner cities, I would look at those children who can go to the nearest school, even if they used to attend a school further away.
Yes.
It is better that they're able to even walk to the nearest school 3 days a week and get some face-to-face schooling, or at least if they can access internet and be supervised and get some teaching at the nearest school. If we don't have sufficient near schools, then I agree with you. Let's use community centers, church halls, but I really do think that we need to get the education sector operational for those children who do not have the internet to do distance learning in a meaningful way.
In some way, Professor, I think I heard you pointing us to a direction where those who can afford it should stay home and use the system as it is now. But those who are likely to be left behind because of lack of the technology would therefore need to go to school. So we'd have two systems which will need massive supervision and organization.
Right, but in some places abroad, they're getting the children to alternate, because just keeping the children at home all the time using a computer is not really that healthy socially or physically. So even if those who are better off can get to the school 2 days a week, or at least sometimes, because just to stay indoors at home really is imposing a huge challenge on young people.
Just a word, Professor, Doctor, in this instance, as we look to the vaccination, there's a lot of skepticism and doubt about it. What's the situation? Because we are getting a drug, the Moderna, which has not yet been approved in the United States, but is being foisted on us, we believe. What should be the reaction to this?
Well, I have been following the development of the vaccines very closely, because I actually sit on the World Health Organization working group that is looking at the COVID vaccines. So every week we have more than one meeting reviewing the developments and looking at the studies, the results of the research, the clinical trials, where the vaccines are being given, and they are following the persons who are getting the vaccine and following persons who are also getting an injection without the vaccine. Now, I can tell you in summary, the results of the vaccines that have come to clinical trials and presented the results, they are very encouraging. You would have heard that the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine, about 95% efficacy, effectiveness, 95%.
And the Moderna is about 94, no?
Moderna about 94.
Right.
Now remember, they had set a threshold that if the vaccine was 50% effective, it would be worth giving people, because it would provide significant protection to many people. So these vaccines are showing results that are much better than the threshold of 50%, because if the vaccine did not reach 50% effectiveness, the World Health Organization would not recommend countries to use it. The other thing that's very encouraging is when you look at the what we call the adverse events, the side effects associated with the vaccines. And this is why when you do a vaccine trial, and they've given the vaccines to thousands of people, you always have one group who get the vaccine and another group who get an injection without the vaccine. And they compare the side effects in both. The profile is remarkably similar, the side effects, where you get a little tenderness, maybe a little redness and swelling, possibly a little pain at the site where you get the injection. Some people do get a little fever that is short-lived for a few hours, less than a day. They may feel a few chills, also short-lived. Some muscle pains or joint pains, headache, and tiredness. Those are the main side effects. And we see them in both the people who get the injection without the vaccine and those who get it in the vaccine. Those who get the vaccine may have just a little more frequency of the headache and the tiredness.
Hear what you have said, Prof, but do we have sufficient time to really judge the vaccine on the basis of which you have just explained? Or is there the possibility of latent adverse effect, which time hasn't taken care of yet?
This is a very important question. So what we're trying to, all the clinical trials that I'm aware of, the recommendation has been to continue to follow up everybody for a minimum of a year. And one of the companies has said they're going to follow up people for 2 years. But they're trying to follow them up for at least a year, because you can get rare side effects that are important. So you must follow them up.
And
now, we do have something where you call post-marketing surveillance, where even after, every time you give a vaccine, and this goes on with when we give vaccines to our children in Jamaica, you have to write down the lot number and the date and the time when you've given that vaccine. Because every reaction that is serious, you have to track back and look, could it have been caused by the vaccine or not? What many people don't realize is that all the time people are developing conditions, whether they get vaccinated or not. So because you have this background effect of people having severe conditions, you always have to follow up persons who did not get the vaccine as well as those who got the vaccine.
And the truth of the matter is, it is authorized for emergency use, not yet approved. So one would have to be doing this constant monitoring, because there are questions still left unanswered. Is it that even with taking the vaccine twice, how long would we be immune to the virus? Is it something that might have to be repeated? Those questions remain, right, Professor?
You're dead on target. That is a second reason why you have to keep following up the persons. Because, as you say, the immunity or protection that they got initially from the 2 doses of the vaccine over time it could wane or get weak, and they don't have the same level of protection. So they have to be followed up.
I want to ask you this, because you said that given, and I'm sure there are other countries in this particular belt, right, where we are not at the top of the ladder, so to speak, socioeconomically. So, as you said, given all that, we may not have the vaccine until late next year.
That is correct. The WHO and other partners have established something called the COVAX facility. CO for COVID and VAX for vaccines. So the COVAX facility, in which they have raised money and they have put in motion a situation to, they are targeting, mobilizing 2 million doses of vaccine from the companies that are producing the vaccines, so that these vaccines can be distributed to low and middle income countries. Because you're quite right, the high income countries have made bilateral arrangements and contracts with the vaccine manufacturers to ensure that they get hold of the vaccine first, and of course they can pay for it. Well, countries in the Caribbean like Jamaica, through the Pan American Health Organization revolving fund, the PAHO has brought all the countries in the Americas together, and the revolving fund is a partner within the COVAX facility, and it is negotiating on behalf of our countries to try and get access to vaccine at a reasonable price.
Knowing our, one last question, knowing our public health system like you do, knowing the time before this vaccine can be in play, or any other vaccine that is able, that meets the requirements, is in play, knowing our public health system, knowing our weaknesses, what are your fears?
Well, the biggest challenge I think that we face is to somehow support and encourage people to follow the non-pharmaceutical measures, the measures that will protect them from becoming infected with COVID and prevent them, if they become infected, whether they have symptoms or not, would help to prevent them from passing it on to other family members, friends, or co-workers. That is wearing the mask, washing the hands, keeping the physical distance, avoiding the crowds, especially indoors. Those measures, many people are committed to doing their best to applying those measures. Those measures are going to be needed probably all of next year. So people get tired of, they get tired and frustrated having to follow those methods, which is understandable. And this is why people need to be able to have outdoor spaces where they can maintain physical distance and don't have to wear the mask all the time once they're not in a crowd. So I see that as the biggest problem we face. There's another problem we may face, and we will soon know how it goes. You notice how severe the latest surge of COVID cases is in Europe and North America. And part of the reason for that is because they're moving into winter, the cooler months, when respiratory viruses tend to circulate with a vengeance. Now, in tropical countries like Jamaica, we also see an increase in the respiratory infections in our so-called winter months, the cooler months. So we have to be very careful that following Christmas activities and socialization, and many of our family and friends coming from abroad, including North America and Europe, that we have to be sure that we don't have a serious surge in January and February, because we'll be in our so-called cooler months. And we don't know if the COVID vaccine might transmit more readily at that time.
Okay,
so
Professor.
I think if we can hold the line and keep those measures in place to protect ourselves and the people who we interact with and get through January and February, then we'll be in much better shape to manage the rest of the year.
Quite a lesson, and we thank you ever so much.
And no better point to close on.
Yes,
That hope, that hope.
Thank you,
Okay,
Prof.
well, thanks for having me,
Yes.
and all the best.
Thank you. We'll be back.
All right, we are back with you on Real Chat from one professor to the other. I won't get into the situation which Curtis would have it, but Professor Winston Davidson, I've been an admirer of him from we were in primary school at Rollington Town. We went to Kingston College. He was in the choir, I was in the choir. He played Manicom football, I played Manicom football. He was president of the Old Boys Association for 10 years, I was there for 10 years. I'm not a doctor. He is. And so we call on his expertise to help us to go through.
And there are times you think you're still a singer.
Yes.
But we won't go there. We won't go there.
Professor Davidson, how are you?
Not too bad at all.
We ended on a note, Curtis, where we asked Professor Figueroa what was his greatest fear about the COVID situation at this time. Should we start with Dr. Davis on that question?
Right on that note.
What are your fears, Doctor?
My fears are that the population at large would not take the measures seriously during this particular period. And this would result in an upsurge in the amount of persons who actually get the infection. Added to that, you will begin to see community spread again, and it would begin to affect the economy. And because we have such a difficult time this next year to get the sort of immunization that could give the coverage that we need, it is going to really have a major impact on the economy. And this will lead naturally to the exacerbation of poverty and the other equally as a result of that.
Are you expecting a more serious scourge in the next come around? Because you look at Europe, it is said, and it seems to be grave in that area, what with the winter months and with our cooler months. Are there some precautions that we need to take more seriously?
Well, first of all, the measures that we need to take are pretty well known. The question is, how can we get these measures to become widespread and to be part of our new culture?
And let me put this in the pot before you go any further. Our culture is being dismissive of being restrained. So given what is a natural tick, we really have a problem, doctor.
Well, we do have a problem, but one of the things is that there are many, many ways of dealing with changing the culture
Yes.
of a particular country,
Right.
especially what we call the nascent culture, fetishes and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, if we can get the leadership of government and our institutions, in particular our community institutions, I'm talking about the workplace, the commercial entities, the churches, and of course, even schools, the schools naturally, and other influential institutions. These institutions do shape the behavior of persons in the communities. And I think we need to concentrate on the youth groups and the leadership of the communities. That's where you really get the true impact of changing the culture of behavior that need to be changed in order to get the mitigation of the COVID virus. Because we need to have these measures even more intensively over the next, not only over the next year, over the next 2 years. Because I do not anticipate that we'll be able to get the sort of level of immunization in Jamaica in the year 2021. I think we have to look to 2022.
Are you concerned, doctor, about a variant, a different strain developing in this period? And how would that change the equation in terms of the vaccine, which is coming out now?
Well, the fact is that they have identified so far, I think, somewhere in the region of nine strains or so.
Right, there are new strains, there are.
And one would expect naturally that you're going to get variations in the strain. But essentially, the vaccines, depending on the type of vaccine, will have an impact of creating the necessary antibodies that, in fact, can affect the different strains in a way that would prevent the bacteria, the virus from multiplying. Of course, that has to do with doing a lot more research, because nobody really knows the real outcome of the vaccination. Too early to tell. You have to do the necessary randomized controlled trials and tests to see exactly what is going to be the outcome.
In local language Act, even with what we know of the vaccination itself now, we still don't know the outcome?
We first of all, you have not in fact vaccinated enough persons to get a scientifically sound judgment, make a scientifically sound judgment as to the full outcome in terms of perspective of as what you would expect over the next year or so.
How many
days yet? You've just started to immunize a couple of 100,000 or a couple of million in different communities.
But that is not so good news, Doc.
Well, that is how it usually is. Because you have to start somewhere.
About how many persons?
Based on the studies, the stage 1, stage 2, and now the stage 3 studies that they are doing, which are the number of tests that are part of the criteria to establish that you can actually use this particular vaccination.
About how many persons would we need to vaccinate here in Jamaica to sort of get the results you're talking about?
Well, I can't say. The fact is that we have had if you look at the whole history of vaccination, there have been times when vaccinations have gone through the whole rigor. Vaccines have gone through the whole rigor and are thought to be efficacious. And over a period of time, they have to be withdrawn, right? Of course, it takes a lot of effort, time, work, and of course, a lot of scientific studies and reviews to determine exactly the impact, which is the best impact, what impact we make.
Yeah, we have heard, Doc, of the strain on the medical college fraternities. There are nurses also. Should they be vaccinated first?
Well, the fact is that in terms of priority,
Yes.
you can't effectively manage any pandemic without the manpower to do it. And therefore, you have to protect that manpower, that skilled manpower, trained manpower, through which you're going to effect the necessary program. You have to begin with those persons in the trenches, the doctors, the nurses, and of course, would take naturally with the ones who are greater at risk.
Right.
And so therefore, I don't think that anybody can argue with that.
One final question, Dr. Davidson. You were mentioning about the antibodies, right? Would you know of the program here in Jamaica where folks who were infected were being asked to contribute to such a program and to come and give blood, I think? Do you know what's happening to that program? Those who have been infected and have recovered?
Blood to do what? Blood to do what?
Develop
Or to
antibodies?
be tested for the antibodies, something. There was some argument.
Or you mean to the part of a trial?
Yes.
To see exactly the effect.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Well, that is part of what you call the randomized controlled trials that you need to do see exactly the impact.
How is that program? What is that program going on?
Well, every vaccination, every vaccine has to go through a similar program. That is how you measure how effective the vaccine will be. And so you have to get volunteers, right, to do that. And they, of course, and you go through a particular process where you are exposed to the vaccine, and then blood is taken, and you, over a particular period of time, and you see exactly how the antibodies against the virus is being built up. And so that is why you can say that you have a 90% impact, 9 out of every 10, or 95 out of every 100, in the cases where you have 95%, right? But that, of course, is under experimental conditions. When you actually go out there in the population, that's a different matter, right? And remember, you're trying to get at least 70% of the population vaccinated so that you could get what is known as herd immunity.
Yes.
In other words, the cumulative effect of the 70% decreases the risk of getting the COVID or the virus within the population.
All right, Professor, we will need to keep in touch with you as this thing is continuing. But thanks for a useful summary of what is happening and what to look forward to. And we do appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. When Back with Real Chat, and we're right back at the crease with a particular delivery this time. Legendary West Indies fast bowler and cricket commentator Michael Holding and Ebony Rainford Brent, commentator and former cricketer, have been awarded the Freedom of the City of London for passionately speaking out against racism during the English summer. That unequivocally was Real Talk, Real Chat. Here is Ebony Rainford Brent.
That's not her name. She's Ebony Jewel Coralie Camellia Rosman Rainford Brent. Am I correct, Ebony?
He likes a mouthful, Ebony. He likes the
You've
mouthful.
done it.
He likes the
You got
mouthful.
it perfect.
Well,
Thank you.
here is
How are
she.
you guys? Thanks for having me.
Right. The first black woman to play for the England team. And you were also captain of the Surrey women's team.
Right.
She was a member of the England team, winning the 9th ICC Women's World Cup in 2009, beating New Zealand by 4 wickets in the final. One of the first females commenting on men's international cricket matches. She's a motivational speaker and host of the inspirational podcast, The Art of Success.
Yes.
Ebony, welcome again.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
Ebony, it was quite a pleasure to see you in commentary position during the test series. And then this happened, which shook up the world. Tell us, has the game been shaken up by what happened on that day in the first test, the third day?
Yeah, it's been surprised me actually how powerful it was. You know, I guess I've been part of cricket for a long time and done many features and things that maybe haven't really resonated a huge amount. Maybe, you know, they were watched and they passed through, and I thought it'd be the same. I guess what happened with the piece is it connected to so many people who felt the emotions of myself and Mikey around what happened with the Black Lives Matter movement, George Floyd, and what's been happening for many years and generations. And, you know, what's been, I guess, the biggest surprise to us, you know, I didn't expect within, I think it was a few hours, 2 million had watched it. Within a day, 10 million had watched it, and I don't know how many since. But what I guess it did is it gave a voice to many people who felt like us and maybe wanted to express some of those emotions. So I think what it's done is it's opened up so many conversations now globally. We're seeing here in the UK, people are talking about racism. We saw people in South Africa have talked about the piece, in New Zealand, around the world. So, you know, really fortunate to have been able to been given that platform, but it has really, I wouldn't say shaken up, but I would say it's created some really good conversations, healthy conversations that hopefully can make change.
But as you have said, Ebony, there's no going back because there had been talk, articles, slogan, reviews, commission strategies, all coming to naught. What is expected? What will change?
Yeah, I have to be honest. I hit frustration point this year. I think seeing what happened with George Floyd, you just get to that point as a person. You think, look, enough is enough. We know the system and how it's operated. And when it comes to cricket, and specifically, you know, in England, we know that the system hasn't supported the black community. I wouldn't even say enough. I would just say that it hasn't, and it hasn't worked. And I suppose there is this point now. What has been great, I suppose, is the amount of conversations, the media coverage has made cricket have to become more accountable. Have to answer harder questions, have to answer what are we actually doing, like what action, rather than nice to do. So I hope 2021 next year becomes a chance for us to see action. You know, I've been working on the ACE program, which Mikey is a patron for. We're now bringing through talented black players. We're starting in London and Birmingham, but we're going to be national. And, you know, I'm fed up of even talking myself. I need to be doing stuff. And I realise that with the ACE program, we can make a difference. So that's what I want to see. I'm fed up, like you say, commissions. We've heard it, we've seen it all before. Now it's time to make the proof in the pudding.
The award was Tuesday, no? Virtually?
Wednesday, yeah.
Yes,
Wednesday,
yes, virtually. You're a motivational speaker. You're the host of the podcast, The Art of Success. what's on your shoulders now? How do you, yes, how do you engage others
Yeah.
now? Because
Yeah.
you know it's not going to be changed radically overnight. What's on your shoulders now? How do you contemplate this?
Yeah, do you know, this is why I give credit. Look, Michael Holding is someone I've admired for years as the legend that he is. But this summer, working together over Sky, he was pretty honest with me that, look, we have, and some people have an opportunity to speak and do and make change. And I guess on my shoulders, I've got a tag of, I guess, the first black woman to play cricket for England. I work in the media. We get these awards now, or these recognitions, like the Freedom of the City in London. And, Mikey told me it's time to keep our foot on the gas until we get cramp. And even if we do get cramp, we've got to keep going. And, if I'm honest with you, a year ago, I was reluctant to speak up because of the fear of the backlash. I don't think I felt empowered to speak about race. I thought I'd get shouted down and not listened to. But now, you're like, well, look, people are listening, and I guess I have a voice luckily, that people are listening to, and I've got to speak for those who maybe aren't being heard. And that's what kind of Mikey's inspired me to do, is now say, look, speak up when it's time to speak up, make waves with programs like we are doing with ACE and other areas. And I guess I have to accept that responsibility. I don't know if I would have wanted to a year ago, because I might have been fearful, but that's what he's inspired me to do, is just be empowered. And I think that's what a lot of us have got to do, is when we get the chance around these big issues, it's now time. If it's not now, when is it, right? So it's time to speak up.
Two things struck me, Ebony. One has to do with how you were brought up in a mixed community, as you put it. But you didn't see the brunt of racism until you entered cricket. Tell us about that.
Yeah, look, I have to be honest. My mum's a Jamaican woman. She came over to the UK, and we lived in Brixton. And Brixton is very diverse. A lot of black community, a lot of Asian. I grew up in this whole melting pot. And if I'm honest, I look back. I still live in the same sort of community now, and I don't experience issues like people just understand diverse communities, and there isn't that sort of, I don't know, separation. And then I walked into the world of cricket, and I looked around. Not only did I not see anyone that looked like me, the comments, and you watch the video. I won't go into too much detail, but
you lot.
It started straight away. There was no shot. There's no questioning. Am I experiencing racism, or am I experiencing ignorance? It hit me at the age of 11. I was like, why are people saying these things to me? Why am I being treated or commented on in this way? It was very clear, and I think because I've been sheltered, and I think actually I'm lucky that I've grown up with such a grounding of diversity, that I just walked in and was straight away just kind of struck by some of the things, and it progressed through my career. I would say actually it got worse and worse as I got older in some ways, until I retired. So what it tells me, and what I know from working in this space at the moment with young people and stuff, we've still got a long way to go before
I need to ask her this personally. Okay. Did you ever want to strike back? Did you, or was it that you always felt I'm taking the high ground here?
Yeah, it's a really good question. My mum is one of those, I don't know if you had it. My mum was kind of one of those, prove it through your runs, prove it through your performance. That was what my mum's style was. And I think I took that on, but I suppressed the anger. And I think that suppression of anger actually did really bad for my self-esteem. I think it wears you away, knowing that you're kind of sometimes sucking up comments and accepting it and taking on it. It erodes, because you know that you're being treated a certain way. So I think it's now actually, I'm feeling more anger now, and I'm not feeling it for me. I'm feeling it for the young people that I'm seeing. That I'm thinking that I don't want this to happen to. And I suppose for me, I sucked it up, but now I'm just hitting the point of I don't want to see the next generation.
Right, but stranger Ebony, looking at the whole scenario, what I picked up from it is that yes, you sucked it up, but there was a search for escape, for expression, And you found it in this interview that it brought tears to you when you remember the things that you had gone through up to this stage.
Yeah, I think I bottled up a lot, and I haven't, a bit like Mikey said, I haven't spoken in that sort of way, and it just hit me because, there's many stories as well which I haven't, I'm not going to go public with because I just don't think
right.
it's in the interest of anyone, and it just, as you sit there and you look down the camera and it started to hit me, I think that's where the tears start to flow because it starts to remind you of how much you have suppressed. So yeah, you're right. I bottled it up, and that interview was mostly one that started to open up the emotions. And now I think it's about channeling what I feel to try and help make positive change.
One thing I wanted to explain for me, Curtis can have it for the rest of the period. You studied the anthropology of sports, yes? And you discovered that there's a serious link between the MCC and the slave trade. Explain that to me.
Yeah, it's an interesting one that I've gone on my own journey, and I started looking. I was trying to understand why, I guess, in England specifically, and looking wider, but why we have these problems of inequality within our sport. Why are we not served in the black community? And when you look at the history of who and how set up the game, an example would be Sir Thomas Warner, who was one of the first colonizers of the Caribbean islands. Helen Warner, I think it was his son or grandson, has a stand at Lord's. Benjamin Illaby, they just took down his portrait from the MCC. If you start to look at some of the founders of the system, the structure that still exists, how the county structure was existing, many of those people came from the communities, and they invested in communities that served the original purpose of cricket. Cricket, as I'm sure you guys all know, was used as a way to promote white supremacy, to share the values of the English Empire, and was taken around the world, to West Indies, India, etc. And when you start to unpick the history and see where the game has been invested in and where it hasn't been, it makes sense when you sort of start to follow the historic trail as to why certain communities are still excluded as today, and some are invested. If you look at the in England, for example, the infant school system, which was set up through, a lot of the funding through the empire, etc.
Right.
It's over dominated in our game. It's pretty much still going to where the power structures exist. So going through that course and starting to unpick some of the history, it made it so clear. And I just think now, look, we have a chance to just kind of rewrite history. If enough people come together, we can rewrite history for the next generations coming forward to make it not based on that old power system, but on a new power system that serves more people.
One final question.
From you.
You have returned to Surrey, no? As administrator, right?
Yeah, and on the board as well.
How is this being addressed? You need to ensure that it's not happening or even kept at a minimum. What's taking place?
What are we doing? Yeah, so we set up something called the ACE program. It stands for African Caribbean Engagement Program. You look at the Oval in South London, and the area it's based in, nearly 50% of the kids are from the black community, the black British community. I went into the board a year or so ago and sort of started talking about this issue and just saying, look, we need to serve the community better. And we set up the ACE program, which was to accelerate opportunities for black British kids. And within the space of a year, we've had funding from Sport England of over £500,000 to now allow us to get into the community. We're going to have full-time staff, administration staff, directors of programs going in, supporting schools, community clubs in the black areas, pulling out talent and developing talent and trying to get it into the system. So it's not just in London, we're going into Birmingham as well, which is another big black community, and we're looking at being in 5 cities. So that started because of the conversations at Surrey. I'm driving it as a chair. Mikey's a patron of ours, and there's many other people who are getting behind sport. So I think if we have 5 years doing this work around the ACE program, we could change the whole story rather than it being about the decline and the lack and the negative side. Actually, we're going to see what we do know, and I'm sure you all agree with me, there's a lot of talent in the black community. Unfortunately, it's not getting the opportunity. So we'll create. That's the plan, is to create it, and we're doing that. And hopefully, anyone who goes and check out our Instagram or Twitter, you'll see so much positive and inspiring black boys and girls. You know, we had one go on to play county cricket this summer at junior level under 18, and it's just brilliant to see. So we just want to create those opportunities now.
Well, Ebony, certainly a case of brain beauty and compassion and the will to change things. We thank you very much for joining us, and wish for you all the success.
This I was struck most with.
Yes.
When she said that, Mikey said, you keep pressing,
Yes.
even when you're cracked, right?
Yeah.
Maintain that will. Maintain that will.
Thank you so much.
Good.
Thank you for having me on, guys. Have an amazing Christmas.
Thank you.
Good.
We'll return
Bye-bye.
right after this. We're back, and you heard from Ebony. Well, the other awardee is Michael Holding, right? And what do you say about his deliveries?
I don't know. I just wanted to start by saying he has had many partners with the opening with the new ball, but I think Ebony is the best of so far.
Indeed.
Really complimented his effort, and what an effort it was, Michael. Unscripted as it was. People are still asking, where did that come from? Because if you had written it, it could not have been better said.
Well, to be honest, Stratton, I could have said it better if I had written it, because there were so many things I could have said and wanted to say, but they were just floating around in the head, and I couldn't get everything in order. To be honest.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this. Perhaps if it was written, right, it would have been edited and would have lacked that natural flow.
It touched so many people.
Yes.
Yes. Wow, couldn't have been better.
Listen, your title of your book, No Holding Back, right? What is there not to hold back with? Commenting on your experience with all this racism.
Well, that is the past book, Curtis.
Yes.
The new book
is coming,
which is coming out in June next year, is Why We Kneel, How We Rise. That is the title of the new book.
Okay.
This is the one now that we're going to be dealing with racism. The no holding back was cricket and my life and all that. This has purely about what has happened over the last 8 to 9 months, what caused it, where is it stemming from, going back into history, the hundreds of years of oppression and dehumanization of black people, and how we're going to get back up and stand up. Because right now we're kneeling, we're taking a knee.
Yes.
Wow. Kaepernick didn't really start it. He brought it to light recently. This is going back from Martin Luther King days, when they used to take a knee when they were approached by police every time they marching.
Right.
But this is now being brought to the conscious, because if you look at the marches during Martin Luther King days and Malcolm X and those guys, if you look at the pictures of those marches, you would think 90%, perhaps even 95% of the people marching were black. If you look at the marches this year,
yes,
a ton of white people, a ton of non-black people, brown, all kind of people involved in these marches, because people have now recognized that this thing has gone too far. It is ridiculous. When you see a women's football team out of Sweden taking a knee to support Black Lives Matter, you know this thing is growing.
Are you disappointed with cricket, Michael, especially the Englishmen, who they would have been the first to want to abort this effort while other sports have taken it up and are continuing? How disappointed are you?
Stratton, the England cricket team, it is on record. The England cricket team is the first professional team to stop taking a knee.
Yes.
Now, I made my opinion and my thoughts very clear at the time. I don't intend to keep on beating that drum. I have bigger fish to fry, as people would say.
Yes.
This is why I am doing this book. Yeah, go ahead.
And to get that, and to get to that book, because we have bigger fish to fry. Having knelt, how do we rise?
Well, that is the thing. We rise by education, educating the people as to exactly what this world is all about. This world was formed on the premise of white superiority. That is why they don't teach black history. Every year they have a Black History Month. 1 month, you have 12 months a year, so it's only 1 month you can talk about Black History Month.
Yeah, which is limiting.
They do that because they do not regard black as anything of worth. So this is all about teaching everyone. And a lot of black people don't recognize our greatness either. As Bob Marley kept on singing before he was extinguished, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Only we ourselves can free our minds. People not going to free thoughts. We have to free our minds.
And as he said, Mikey, what
and we free that through education.
Yeah. And as he sung in another song, Mikey, what we know is not what they teach us. How long has this journey started for you? Because you clearly have been doing some massive research.
Well, let me tell you something, Stratton. This is like an awakening for me, because I've been living the life without making it have any effect on me. When you live in a country like Jamaica, where the majority of people are like yourself, you don't really feel racism. Racism has been in Jamaica for a long time, but it has diminished over time. And when I was a young man growing up, I heard about it. I didn't personally experience it, because as a young man, all your friends don't see racism in it. You have Chinese friends, you have white friends, you have black friends, you have Indian friends. We just see each other as friends.
People.
When you get older and the institutionalized racism start to hit you, that is when you recognize it.
It is
but
said
as I said, I started to travel out of Jamaica when I was 21 years old, starting to play cricket. And that is when I first started to experience this thing. But I kept on telling myself, I do experience it at home. So I don't pay it in mind. I'll just brush it off and just disregard these idiots, and when I get home, I'm fine. But then it grows and grows on you as time goes on.
You mentioned education is a means of rising from this, like the phoenix, I suppose. And there has been the contention that we never teach about our exploits. Why isn't the exploits of the West Indies cricket team world champions for 20 years? Why is that not taught in schools?
Curtis, I'm going back beyond that. I'm not talking about recent days and what West Indies cricket has done. I go on beyond that. You see, sports contain measurables. You cannot argue against anything that you can measure.
Yeah.
Nobody can tell you Usain Bolt that, oh, you're not the best. Usain Bolt run 9.56 or whatever it is. You can't dispute that. When Bob Beeman jumped 28 feet in the long jump pit, it cannot be disputed.
Yes.
What can be disputed and what can be hidden is the great things that people of color have done in history. I made mention of Louis Howard Latimer. Nobody knows anything about this man that invented the carbon filament that made the light bulb shine.
Right.
Everybody know about Thomas Edison. He was a black man, so you hide him away. Now that we talk in this age of the pandemic and inoculations and vaccinations, do you know the first man in the Western world that did anything about inoculation was a black man?
Yes.
And he took the science from Africa.
From Africa, he was a slave, and he knew about it from in Africa, and he told his white master in Boston, Massachusetts about it.
But
he gets no credit. Nobody knows anything about it.
But even though our performances can be measured, we need refresher courses so that we maintain our pride about ourselves. And that's why I come back to the whole question of it being taught in schools. Because when you take a look at our present crop of players, pool of players, pride is missing.
I know about that, Curtis. But what I'm saying, I want to go bigger than that.
Tell me something, Mike. No. This book, was it propagated by the Black Lives Matter movement or that situation in England during the summer when you spoke your mind?
Definitely. No. When I went on Sky and spoke,
yes,
that was, as far as I'm concerned, the end of it for me.
Yes.
But the feedback from that, it was extraordinary. I couldn't believe it. The amount of positive feedback I got from people who I did not even know. And I got feedback from people who didn't even know how to get in touch with me. They found a way to get in touch with me.
Right.
Shatan, I got an email that was sent to my wife's business. This man somewhere in the world sees the business name, Kelly Holding, and sends an email and saying to my wife or the company that he's sending the email to, I don't know if you have any relationship with Michael Holding or know how to find Michael Holding, but if you do, please get him this, please forward this email to him. Now, when you get that sort of feedback, plus one of the gentlemen that I work with at Sky, in the commentary box came to me and said, Mikey, you can't just stop there.
No.
This has to go forward. Plus, my boss at Sky, my immediate boss at Sky Cricket, plus my bigger boss at Sky Incorporated, encouraging me to take this thing forward. And that is why the book came up as an idea. And I said, why not? And I have some good people collaborating with me in this book. If you come across Usain will tell you. As I interview Usain to talk about this book. I interview Naomi Osaka. I just finished interviewing a young lady who represented the USA in the Olympics in Rio. So, I have a lot of people involved in this book. And as I said, this is about education. This is going to be revealing a lot of things that have been hidden.
I think the world is awaiting that, Michael. But tell me, the award itself, what does it mean to you?
It's more symbolic than anything else. It's something that they used to do way back in history, in the ancient days. That if you did not have freedom to the city of London, you could not do any business in London. You could not trade. You could not do your whatever business you had inside London. So this is something that goes back into those ancient days. And it's just something that they have carried on to recognize people that they want to recognize that they think have done something of worth. That's why Ebony and myself got this award.
Okay.
It means a lot because, you know, I get no privileges from it, but at the same time, it gives the cause exposure, which is important.
But do you see it as an acknowledgement?
Definitely.
Yeah.
But we
Definitely.
speak of what is to be pursued to bring about change. What do you see
Sir.
as some of your challenges?
The challenges, I think, are not as great as they used to be because without big money and big corporations getting on board with this thing, it won't go anywhere. Nobody on the road can change what has been going on for centuries. This institutionalized racism and systemic racism will need corporations to get behind it. And you can see the first one I can remember immediately was Nike.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Amazon have got behind it. HSBC have gotten behind it. The bank. JP Morgan have gotten behind it. Individuals, Michael Jordan has donated $100 million over the next 10 years. So big money is coming behind this thing. My company, Sky, have allocated $30 million. So once you have big companies and big corporations getting behind this thing and putting money where their mouth is, it can make a difference, and that is the movement I see. It makes the path a little bit smoother. You will still come up on roadblocks here.
They're going to set up roadblocks.
That just do not want to face this argument. They don't want to have this conversation. And even when my book comes out, I am prepared for backlash. Because a lot of people don't like the truth.
And a lot of people
and you
want
know how I stay with that.
And a lot of people want us to put this behind us. No one wants to.
You can only put it behind Curtis. You can only put it behind you. The society has put it behind them.
Thank you, please. Thank you, please.
They still have this thought in their head about superiority and inferiority. But I tell you something. I am not sparing the people in my region either.
Thank you, sir.
You can understand. You can understand the colonialists wanting to teach history to make them look in great light, to make them feel good. What I cannot understand is after independence, after enlightenment, we still pushing their history.
Yes. And at least some people have recognized the uselessness.
I cannot accept.
Yes, some people have recognized the uselessness of the single story. The story says to us from their perspective. What about ours? And I know that this book will tend to want to allow us to see the other side. Eh?
Well, that is the education I'm talking about. Not just teach the history, not teach one set of people. Teach the entire history. Remember Burning Spear? Come up with this song. Christopher Columbus was last.
That was story.
Everybody. Too many of us listen to words and don't hear the words. How can you arrive in a country and talk about you discover the country and people are there already?
He encountered the country, well, discovered the country. Oh, Mikey, we could talk to you all evening because you're spot on, and we must rise. We're going to leave you on that note.
Looking forward to this.
As usual, sir, you can come to Real Chat. This is a pitch you can always play. All right?
Okay, Curtis. No problem. Thanks, man.
Okay,
all right, thank you. All right. All right, we are back with you on the Real Chat. Stratton Palmer, Curtis
Myrie.
and we are joined by Brian Smith, newly minted with the J3s and the recent election. Brian, how are you? Welcome to the program.
I'm good, my friend. How have you been? I'm not hearing clearly. Somebody said something.
Yes, I say you're the Assistant General Secretary.
No. Don't get attacked wrong. I'm just the Assistant Honorary Secretary. There's no General Secretary in the J3s.
What is important is the Secretary.
What is it?
that is not even important.
I'm not fighting with you. But
No, I'm not.
all right. Track and field
But before you go, my friend, I just want to know, because is this a new program or what it is? Just give me a quick break. I know time is of essence.
Well, we are about 7 weeks old. It's an online show. Yes, it's a new program.
3 hours.
It's an online program.
Yes, it is.
No, but I didn't know. You guys keep it silent, man.
No. You're not looking in the right places. It's all right.
Yeah. Well, I must confess, I'm not a tech-savvy person, so I have to seek the assistance of the younger ones.
But I'll not take it from you. We need more promotion. So your point is valid.
All right, my friend.
Track
How
and
can I be of
field
assistance
is back
to you?
in the blocks, right?
Definitely, yes.
And in this pandemic, that's happily greeted. It means you guys are doing something right. Them have the model, them have the template. Tell us about it, Brian, please.
Okay. You remember we had the Velocity Fest meet, which was put on by the MVP group.
Yes.
Okay. One of them was Dr. Warren Blake, the previous president, and Dr. Carl Bruce. They developed a template with the assistance of the then J3s. And we had submitted, and that is why that those meets were able to go forward. Now, what happened last week, Saturday at Calabar, which is Tyson Mills meet, the Coaches Association with David Riley and the J3s, what we did was to look at what was done before, and then we tweaked it some more and send it off to the Ministry of Health. And the Ministry of Health with their team, they came, we had a site visit first, and they were there on the day, and I think they like what they saw. They got a permission to host the meet, and I believe this is the way going forward that we'll be using that template for all the meets that we have coming up.
What happens after this? Tell us about the kind of meets that are being planned. Is it something new to meet the pandemic, or a change in how we normally do business?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a change. I'm glad to see that the vaccine is now available in the States and England, but we won't be getting that until April 2021. So what is going to happen? Yes, or later. What is going to happen is that things will have to change. Beginning January, the first week in January, there are two meets. One in St. James and the other in Kingston at Jamaica College. I believe we are going to see those meets without spectators. That is what I'm seeing as we speak. I don't know if there will be any change when the presentation is made to the Ministry of Health, if they will change and say, okay, you can accept X amount of spectators. I don't know. But so far, I think it's going to be meets without spectators. But the important thing to me is that the athletes are competing, because next year is a very challenging and busy year.
The school children?
Pardon me?
These are meets which will include school children?
Definitely. It's a development meets that we have every year, the same meets that are on the calendar. That is what is going to be happening. So we're going to be using all those meets as leading towards champs and beyond.
So it suggests, therefore, Brian, that the youngsters would have been training.
No, I hear that some schools are training. The serious ones are training. The others have not been training, but with what happened last week, I hear that people are out training. So they would not have it, because normally they start training like August, July, September, August. So it's a delay. So this is where we're at for this year. And the beauty about it, for me, seeing them back on the track is the most important thing, because we are looking at losing maybe 1 or 2 generations.
Is champs definite for next year?
I can't say it's definitely for next year.
What's the
but
word on the
proposed
ground?
date, there's a meet in March. There's a proposed date in March, one in April and one in May. So I can't speak for the ISA, but ISA is the one. And if you listen to Keith Wellington, he wants to add the meet in March. You know, so he's pushing for that. And we are going to say, from the J3 point of view, how best we can, you know, assist in making sure that all these meets that are before, that they comply with all the standard that's set out by the Ministry of Health. You know, social distancing, sanitizing of hands, wearing a mask. You know, we're going to be doing all those things that is humanly possible. Because I must tell you, last week when I was at Tyson Mills, I reached here very early before the meet start. And I mean, there's a group of us there, and we were ensuring that all the procedure was followed. And I must give it to the kids, they were complying. Some kids were walking around without masks, and we said, no, put on your mask. They put on their mask. You know, so that gave me hope that it's not as bad as I think, or I thought.
What is definite is the renewal of this thrust for the junior program, and you're the man to talk about that. Talk to us about it.
I don't know if I'm the man to speak about
no,
it.
No, you were the man.
You are being.
What I do know, yes. Yeah, we you know, I learned one thing from Neville Tedemacook. May his soul rest in peace. He said to us way back when, if you have juniors, you will always have seniors. And this is one thing I learned. So I was always looking at a way in which we can keep the juniors going. Now, when you look at the calendar, our calendar ends almost at the last weekend in April. That is when we have pen relays. After pen relays, the coaches do not get paid. So it's difficult for them to keep the kids in training. Now, this is where I've said to my colleagues in the J3, we have got to pick up the slack. And they have agreed. So we are going to do it. Now, the last time we had a serious effort was 2002. Now, you guys just cast your mind back to 2002. Who were the athletes that came out of that program? You know, I don't have to name them, but you all know who came out of the program. So what we're looking at again is to go back to basic, get that program back up and on stream. We have about 4 or 5 sponsors that we have spoken to. We're in preliminary stages, as you all know. You know, it's not definite as yet. But even if the sponsors don't come on board, I do know we must have the program. There's no two ways about it. It's like you're going to a school and you do have a maths teacher. You must find a maths teacher because the kids just can't do without it.
That's right.
And this is where we're going. So we're going to push as hard as possible to try and get, you know, the sponsors on board and to ensure. And our program is going to start the first week in May. That is when we're looking to start the program.
All right, Brian, good news. Looking forward to some activity, and we'll be following your program. Thanks a lot for joining us.
All right, guys. Thanks a million. All the best. And Merry Christmas when it comes.
Yes, in a moment. Thanks. Westmoreland is on lockdown, you know.
Yes, I remember in the early days, people would not let you cross the border in Hanover because they're saying that they didn't have a case. Now Westmoreland is under siege.
Westmoreland, and it is making quite a few people very restless. Some are cursing. High heavens.
To what do we?
Yes, I mean, I think the councillor says why, but the cases are high, and the spike is clear, right?
We have Navana.
Well, guess what? You must always go to the root. So we have online Navana, man who lives in Westmoreland. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
What is going on, Navana?
Well, really, of a fact, you know, I believe that it's too much party, and the people are not cooperating well. Even if you're even keeping a party, you hardly find people with masks. So we expect the corona will push further and further because nobody cooperates.
So you said that the partying is the cause of the spike?
Yeah, the party, too much party and the gathering.
What about the legal force, the law men?
Well,
are they monitoring the situation?
Yeah, they monitor, but as soon as the law move away, everybody gather up again.
Some all curse the policemen them to a year.
And curse them too. So if they don't put somebody to justice, make the others of people realize it is serious thing, well, it will go on same way.
Are people reacting to say it's Christmas, we have a party, or you genuinely have some folks that just say, listen, this thing, nothing is going to happen to me. This thing is even fake. What are the sort of responses?
Yeah, you have people saying that. For true. And they just don't care. They're doing party same way. Because even right now, I'm a disc jockey. I really play music, play sounds and all over the place. And since the corona thing now, we kind of cool off. We kind of cool off at the party because this thing getting serious and serious. Nobody cooperating.
Are you ridiculed because of it?
Huh?
Are you ridiculed?
I don't hear it clearly.
Are people saying, Chuck, you're too afraid?
Yes, that's what. Yes.
What is being done from, say, the parish council and other entities in terms of spreading the word that things are getting worse?
Really, Papa, you know, as Mr. say, the people, they just don't care. So even if the MP come around, I see problem. As MP gone, party again. So himself can't stop it. The people, them just stubborn and not cooperating.
Are you seeing many tourists around?
They have a couple of foreigners, yes. Yeah, a foreigner come in. And like our Christmas now, more are going to come in because everybody come in at Christmas time. You know.
Are they involved in the activity?
Yes, then that's why they come down the party. That's why they come down to the party.
So then, when them come, Nevada, them not quarantining?
No. No, they're not. They are not cooperating.
It's gotten out of control.
And the whole fact, you have some person always out on the road with their phone looking for the police. As they see police come on the car, then call somebody. All right, police are come. So by you come there, if 50 somebody was there, by the police reach there, it's only 3 or maybe 4 somebody you see. You see me? And then by the police drive fast again, everybody group up again. You have a man for stand by for each one of the corner. So I'm telling you, they're just not cooperating. So
you're saying to us that they have lookout to signal when the police is coming?
Yes.
Organized.
All right, Navana, but needed to keep safe. You keep on doing the responsible thing, yeah?
Yes, sir.
All right, my brother. Good.
Curtis, that is what you call organized chaos.
Yeah, it is indeed. It is indeed. And I'm wondering, you know, how is it that they're just merrily going along without any regard for their lives?
But they said
and the lives of others.
The people in authority, the police, the parish council, the councillors, the people of influence, they are not doing anything to get them organized to be able to deal with the situation. Eh?
Remember, it was the councillor who says,
yes,
why lock us down further? It is care, right? That's the very reason. Okay, we will be back with Real Chat. All right, we're back with Real Chat. Strategy, we are having other concerns too.
Deep concern in the society.
Right. One of the concerns is identity theft, because there's increasing use now of being online to do business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good. And it is a worry. We have here on the line Andrea Livingston Prince, business management consultant. Hi, Andrea.
Hi. Congratulations on your program.
Thank you.
And thanks for focusing on small business. It's important.
Yes. How do I calm my fears?
First of all, my lane is about how business interprets policies and laws and so on to grease its own wheels. So as it relates to small business, this whole thing of privacy versus cybersecurity, they're two separate issues, and they're complex issues. So we're asking small business to interpret complex issues which affect them in significant ways. So, you can have cybersecurity issues in place, but the privacy is out, right? No, you can't have privacy without cybersecurity. And here's the thing now, you need a combination in order to address these issues. You need technology, you need good processes, you need proper policies, and you need people that actually know what they're doing to deal with this. Now, many of us are trying to, as small business, especially the micro enterprises, what you're focusing on is how to give a good product or service, right? So when you ask us now and to collect your money on time, when you ask us now to put this added layer, you know what micro enterprises do? They say, I don't want nothing to do with no online transfer. I don't want any of those. So we had a client, right, that sent some money with someone, cash. And the lady went to the bank. She's not an NCB customer, and she said, "Hey, let me card just to swipe so that I can go in and type in the account number that I'm put it in." She said, of the 8 people behind her, nobody would lend her the card. Why? Not that she looks like a thief, but because we don't know. We don't know. It's just a complex issue. So if you don't know, you stay out of it, right? So one of the things that we need to navigate these waters is information being put about this complex issue in a simple way. I'm not saying you talk down to us. I'm saying you speak simply and clearly and pragmatically. That's what we want. We want to hear practical language and examples for anything you're trying to teach us about this online platform and how to get payments online and how to make your payments online. Hello?
Yes, we're hearing you. Let me ask you this. In terms of the usage, have you seen the kind of growth that you expected when you all first started?
Yes, definitely. I've seen so many of our clients that want to accept cash, accept cards. They want to accept money online. They want to do it. So we do have have to explain to them how this works. We usually have a pool of experts that we partner with because we're no tech experts. So we have to make sure that the systems are in place for them to first understand before they delve into this thing.
All right. Here I am still being tentative. You want to assure me. Provide for me a checklist of all that I should be wary of and what I should be practicing.
Well, I don't know all that you should be wary of, but the first thing I would do is ensure that you have a sit down with the cybersecurity expert, which we partner with. We certainly also ensure that we go through line by line. We ask you to go to your banker and ensure that we even offer support where we sit with you and the banker explains to us every single thing that we need to understand. And sometimes what we need to do is to be patient with ourselves. Some of us believe that we should only know what we want to know. This is a different era. Small business, we have to wake up. We have to wake up and grow up. We are now going to have to learn hard things. Mm-hmm. The Data Privacy Act is coming, and it will protect us significantly as to how people can use our data. We need to know what that means to us. What it means is that none of this data that we have can be used without our knowledge. We have to say, yes, go ahead and use that data, our own data. We have power. So I think this is calling for us more and more as small business to not hide behind this thing to say, listen, I'm small and I don't have an MBA, so I don't need to know those things because it's too much, so I stay out of it totally. No. If you want your business to grow, if you want to seize the opportunities, we're going to have to, sit down and listen and understand what the tech people are saying. 2, we have to listen to our bankers more and better. This thing where you say all bankers are thieves has to stop. We have to stop it. We have to be able to be more careful with our decision making. We also have to know what our technology is. This thing, we have to be careful with our passwords. Some of us would give people our PIN and say, hey, go ahead and do this transaction for me. I know that that's a risk. We need to also ensure that we make sure that our passwords on our computer is protected. It's difficult because you share it with your child and everybody in your house and so on, but that needs to be protected. Some of us who can, if you can, make sure that your computer with your business data is kept separately.
Okay.
Don't store these things on your system where you store passwords. Sometimes you just can't.
Good.
If you share your computer, you cannot store your password.
And I guess
it makes it inconvenient because you have to go remember it.
Well, I'm guessing that therefore, based on what you have told us and not making a joke out of a serious situation, if we don't adhere to some of the things that you have told us, we'll have a pandemic in this area also.
Indeed we will.
Well, I am quite confident, that the banks have seen that some of these things is out of ignorance.
Okay.
And I can tell you about my sector. Small business, we like to say that it is just possible. It's not possible for us to understand these things, but I'm telling you, I'm here today to say that one thing COVID has taught us is that we have to step up. Nobody's asking us to be at the same way that the large corporates are, but we have to own more of our destiny now. Mm-hmm. We have to learn what we need to learn now.
Mm-hmm. Well, you
because
have left
we can't
us with
put other people to do it for us. Sorry?
Yes, so you have left us with a message, which is a good one, that we all have to step up.
Yes, we all have to step up. And this thing where we stay away because we don't want to learn, no, it's over.
All right, thank you, Andrea. Those
thank
were
you so very much,
words.
and congratulations again on this program.
Okay, good.
Oh,
right back
all right, bye.
with real
Thank
chat.
you. Thanks.
Welcome to the final segment of this edition of Real Chat. Stratton, it has been an eventful afternoon.
Quite an eventful afternoon. I was emboldened by the fact that Curtly Ambrose has decided to come out. Time to talk about West Indies cricket, time to talk about his personal fortunes as a coach, to talk about the kind of, call it distrust that you may have between people you're supposed to be cooperating with, somebody who is saying that you're doing well, and then the next moment you're fired, you know, and with that kind of situation, relationship will sour.
If we may remove the mask, it's called hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy, yeah, that's right. And he's willing, but what he has done is what everybody should do. Get rid of the opportunity for excuses by those who offend you, by going and getting the accreditation. He's now level 3.
He's now level 3.
So as we ended that segment, we asked him, what then is the excuse?
Yeah, because there can be no more excuse.
Right.
Right? On top of it, I remember when they first named him, and I said, yes, this is the right person. Not just because of what it is that he can relay to the youngsters, right? But he is
a motivator.
A motivator.
He has somebody who has been there
and Lion King.
Been there and done that.
And is a man who knows that if you're not aware and take serious note of Caribbean culture.
I think more must...
And Ambrose personifies that culture and can talk to the young boy.
More must be said about that in terms of what Clavis said about the culture. You cannot control something that you don't understand, or you destroy it. And this is what is happening to West Indies cricket. So Clavis came in and gave us a point of view. And then we had a brilliant conversation with the gentleman from Australia.
Yes.
He was here, understand the culture, reminisced about going to Kensington in East Kingston.
Yes.
And you have to be taken about that, when he can remember that is East Kingston. Sometimes we travel and we don't know where we go. You know, talking about the picturesque scene that was Kensington.
And he continued the theme eloquently about that sense of pride.
And losing it because we are so close to America, we're getting subsumed by the American culture, and so we have moved away from the pride that we associate with cricket to have other interests in other areas.
Both professors.
Wow, fantastic stuff.
Figaro and Wenty.
Figaro on top of his game. He's part of powerful. We understand the dynamics without giving away what we need in Jamaica as how to safeguard ourselves. You understand both dynamics, and with somebody around like that, I wish that the powers that we would take counsel from him to get a situation of how to deal with the situation in a time perspective, because we may be looking about Christmas or February. Dr. Davidson said it could be another 2 years, you know.
And we had another rousing session with
Ebony.
Ebony. She's a pearl.
Yes.
And Mikey Holding, right?
Yes.
About combating racism, right? I still persist. I'm still persisting though with the point that if we're talking about education, it goes beyond just fine, it's measured. It can be measured. We did a 9 this or we did a so on, right? We must never resist. We must never dismiss a good refresher course. We must never stop telling ourselves about our own exploits, right? Rightly, we must unearth what hasn't yet been told. So I take Mikey's point.
Yes.
But the dynamics of us being kings of the world for 15, 20 years, that's a lesson. That's a course to be taught in schools. That's my contention.
Yes, and you know, it's really recommitting yourself to history that we have been there already and we can continue
and
to
we
be
can
there.
do it again.
And do so by understanding what it took. As the gentleman from Australia said, it took a time of our development leading in the struggle towards independence. What happened after independence when we really look to be self-governing, etc. And then to a position now where we saw the racial climate informing us as to how to deal with situation. Mikey Viv would have known of the pride that victory by the West Indies would have motivated the population there in England, and also that it sort of soothed some of their pain and make them feel as equals. And so it affects you socially as to how to elevate yourself and feel that you do belong.
I can't wait though to read his book While We Wait, How We Rise.
No holding back.
Well, it's after No Holding Back.
Yes.
The book to come.
Yes.
Right? Why We Kneel and How We Rise. That is supposed to be formidable.
Perhaps another time to talk.
It will be another time to talk.
So we end
because I can just imagine himself and Ebony. They are now the
powerful combination.
yes, and the leaders of a particular movement now.
Yes, and as you said,
in their own right.
She's a bright young lady. She have moved away from the kneeling to get into community activity,
work. Yes.
The ACE program,
yes,
getting more black youths involved and going elsewhere. So a movement is afoot.
Movement indeed is afoot. We thank you all for engaging us again for another edition of Real Chat. It's always time to talk, to chat, sports chat, any chat.
Chat your chat.
Chat.
And we say, while we do that, you have to listen.
Indeed. Thanks again. Join us next Thursday.